They had to move fast. Jesus had died on a Friday at about 3 p.m., and the Sabbath was coming. And you couldn't do anything on the Sabbath, not even the work of burying the dead. The few who were willing to go near Jesus' body took it down from the cross, wrapped it in some linens, found a tomb that someone gave them to use, and the stone was rolled in front, and that was it. He was gone. He had died a criminal, put to death by the state. It was a humiliating, shameful, painful death. What happened to all those crowds last Sunday? What happened to the disciples who said they'd follow him anywhere? Everyone had run off scared, every single one. One of his closest had betrayed him to the authorities. Peter even denied knowing the guy. Some revolution this was. They had put a sign above his head on the cross, King of the Jews. It was a bad joke. He had died a joke on Friday. But now it's the first day of the week. And I invite you to read along with me in John chapter 20, who's going to be our storyteller today. Listen to this story. Early on the first day of the week, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene came to the tomb and saw that the stone had been removed from the tomb. So she ran and went to Simon Peter and the other disciple, the one whom Jesus loved, and said to them, "They've taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we do not know where they have laid him." Then Peter and the other disciple set out and went toward the tomb. The two were running together, but the other disciple outran Peter and reached the tomb first. He bent down to look in, saw the linen wrappings lying there, but he did not go in. Then Simon Peter came, following him, and went into the tomb. He saw the linen wrappings lying there and the cloth that had been on Jesus' head, not lying with the linen wrappings, but rolled up in a place by itself. Then the other disciple who reached the tomb first also went in. He saw and believed, for as yet they did not understand the scripture, that he must rise from the dead, and then the disciples returned to their homes. But Mary stood weeping outside the tomb. As she wept, she bent over to look into the tomb, and she saw two angels in white sitting where the body of Jesus had been lying, one at the head, the other at the feet. And they said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping?" She said to them, "They've taken away my Lord, and I do not know where they have laid him." And when she said this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but she did not know that it was Jesus. And Jesus said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping? Whom are you looking for?" And supposing him to be the gardener, she said to him, "Sir, if you've carried him away, tell me where you've laid him, and I will take him away." And Jesus said to her, "Mary." She turned and said to him in Hebrew, "Rabboni," which means teacher. Jesus said to her, "Do not hold on to me, because I've not yet ascended to the Father, but go to my brothers and say to them, I'm ascending to my Father and to your Father, to my God and your God." Mary Magdalene went and announced to the disciples, "I have seen the Lord." She told them that he had said these things to her. Early on the first day of the week, while it was still dark. This is how Easter begins. In the darkness, in the graveyard, Mary goes walking alone to the tomb. And I know, spoiler alert, in case you have not heard yet, it ends happy. This is a happy ending. But for just a moment, for just a little while this morning, I don't want to rush to the end of the story. So will you stay here with me for a bit? Because I think sometimes we want to skip so quickly to the happy ending and overlook where Easter actually starts, in the valley of the shadow of death, in darkness. And Mary walks to his grave alone. Grief is lonely like that. There was nothing she could do for him. the heavy stone was rolled in front. What did she think she was going to do when she got there? I've always wondered that. Just stay, Mary. Get some rest. You must be tired. But she doesn't. She heads out at the very first moment that she thinks it is close to being acceptable to head out as the Sabbath is drawing to an end. She walks to his tomb alone and in the dark. She probably hasn't slept more than a minute that night. And when someone you love dies, there is a rush of details that you have to tend to. Paperwork, calls to make, funeral arrangements, pictures to find. And as horrendous as those early days of grief truly are, at least you can do something for them. Because after, when it's over, when everyone's gone home, when the house is quiet, and you can't for the life of you figure out how the sun still manages to keep coming up each day because he's gone. Mary walks alone in the darkness to the tomb. And what does it matter? She's already in the dark. This is how Easter starts. In the darkness and the graveyard and in our despair of grief and dashed dreams and disappointments. And here it is, Easter Sunday. You've managed to make it here into this space today. You maybe even spruced yourself up a little bit for the occasion. Maybe you're feeling pretty good because you only ate 4 instead of the 10 Reese Cup eggs that you wanted to eat. We are here, Easter Sunday, in this beautiful, gorgeous sanctuary. And the music is amazing, and the Easter lilies just add to it all. But I am mindful that for some of us today, we're still in the dark. It may still be dark to you. And maybe I don't even need to describe to you the walk that Mary does today, because you know that path too well. You've lived it. You know it isn't just Jesus' body that was buried in that tomb. Her hope was in there. Her purpose. Her faith. And maybe some days it feels like that to you, that somehow a big giant stone has been rolled in front of your hope, of your faith. While it was still dark, she goes to his tomb. But that is when things get wild. Because she gets to the tomb and she finds the stone rolled away and it's empty. And she immediately knows that somebody has stolen his body. She runs to the disciples to go tell them this news. And only 2 bother to actually go check it out with her. That tells me how bad it must have really been. Only 2 disciples bother to go see for themselves, and there's a foot race, and they run there, and they see the cloths that once held his body, and he's not there anymore, so they just leave. But Mary stays, and she's weeping. She is so lost in her grief that she doesn't even recognize angels in front of her. They've taken the body of my Lord, and I do not know where they've taken him. Nothing holds back the tide of this grief now. This is one more cruel insult that Jesus has had to bear. Life is not fair, don't we know it? Rome had killed 1,000 just like him. To them, he was just one more angry Jewish peasant that they managed to silence forever. Remember when he said, "Blessed are the peacemakers"? Blessed are the peacemakers, he taught. And yet look what the world does to peacemakers. He's gone, and now his body has been stolen. Mary sees a man standing nearby, and she assumes him for the gardener. Do you know where they've taken him? If you just tell me where they've taken him, I will go to get it. And it's when he says one word that she finally recognized who she's talking to. And it was her name, Mary. It's funny how we don't forget the voices of those we love, but when he says her name, she knows who it is. Rabboni, teacher, and suddenly she's got more hope than she can handle. This is the Easter story. Mary leaves the graveyard and proclaims the very first Easter message. I have seen the Lord. Good message, Mary. Very succinct, 5-word sermon. Perhaps there's a few of you wishing I would follow her lead today. I have seen the Lord, but I'm not. I'm still going. It's going to take me more than 5 words. I'm sorry. But her life was never the same. She found hope in the graveyard, the last place she ever expected to find it. And Mary wants to hold on to Jesus, but she can't because he belongs to the world. He's set loose. Not only does he appear to her in the graveyard, but he would go to those scared, hiding disciples behind locked doors, and he would show them the scars. And that experience would change them. They would realize that love, his love, could not be contained by that tomb. That death and the death-dealing ways of our very lives does not get the final word. He is risen. And no matter how dark and how sad and how heartbreaking it may seem, he is risen. And today is a very special day for all of us here today because we get a front row seat to the power of God at work in young people's lives who are showing us the way today as they step into waters of faith and claim their own faith for their lives. And there's power in standing up and claiming your faith no matter when or how you do it. And I hope as you watch these students get baptized today that you will take a moment and remember. In fact, maybe you even look ahead and imagine a day when you might step into those waters. Maybe you look back and you remember how you were carried to the waters as an infant by your family who loved you and wanted you to know Jesus. Maybe you stepped into the waters shaky-kneed and nervous into some icy cold waters and all you could barely do was squeak out a yes. Take a moment today and to remember that time and moment in your life. And students, one day, you may feel like Mary. You may feel lost in the graveyard. You may feel like hope is lost. And when that is you, I hope that you will hold tight to this story today, to remember how the waters feel around you. Hold tight to the story that we continue to tell, that love cannot be contained by the tomb, that death never gets the last word. And today, all of you are saying yes to Jesus, but he's already said yes to you in a love that will not ever let you go. And after all the peeps have been eaten, after you've accidentally killed one of these beautiful Easter lilies, the truth of this story will remain. That truth that we're still telling thousands and thousands of years later, the truth that gives you and you and you and you and you and me courage to keep on walking through the darkness because his love finds us. And guess what? He knows your name. Christ the Lord is risen today. Alleluia, and thanks be to God.